What's up, guys? Stephen Bogrand here from Pro Physique. Today what I want to talk about is insulin and exercise. So hey, what's up, guys? Happy Thursday, everybody. I hope everyone's doing great. And this one is one of those things that I feel like is very misunderstood. And so we have some people that really love insulin, and we have some people that really hate insulin and think that it's the worst thing in the world. And so I thought that we should talk a little bit about that, just in terms of exercise, how your body responds to that insulin during exercise, and the changes that physiologically are happening when we're exercising in terms of blood glucose and insulin. So let's start first and foremost with insulin, where it comes from, what it does. Insulin is produced in the pancreas in the islets of Langerhans, right? So it's these little cells and they're producing insulin and it's getting released into the bloodstream. Now, the reason that insulin gets released is that blood glucose rises too much. So what insulin does is it facilitates that blood glucose is now getting shuttled into the cells. So it's either going to get shuttled into the cells to be used to build and repair, or to be stored, converted to fat and stored. So let's be very aware of the fact that insulin is kind of a double-edged sword in this aspect, right? So we don't want to demonize insulin as being terrible, like the one thing that makes us fat and the worst thing in the world, right? But we also want to make sure that we don't say that, well, insulin isn't responsible at all for that, because it definitely plays a role in both. So insulin is definitely very important when it comes to terms of muscle growth and getting better and adapting, but it also can make us fat, because what does it do? It shuttles nutrients into the cell, right? So it's getting that out of the bloodstream and into the actual muscle, okay? So that's what insulin is doing. So it is triggered again by high blood glucose levels. Now, insulin release can happen from even a moderately sized carbohydrate meal, and that is kind of why we want to space carbs out over the day, right? So we want to space carbs out so that we're still growing. You know, we want some carbs in the morning, we want some carbs at night, but we want most of our carbs around our heaviest activity time. So for a lot of us who are resistance training and working out, that means pre-workout and post-workout. I myself will actually do about 50% of my total daily carbs pre and post workout, right? So 25% before and about 25% afterwards. There are a couple of reasons that I do that. So one, pre-workout, so that I have plenty of blood glucose available to get me through that workout, because obviously I train kind of hard-ish, sort of. But I want to make sure that my training is not negatively affected. So, especially in a time of dieting, when I'm in calorie restriction, that becomes even more important, because my aerobic system, fats, might not be able to keep up with the energy demand that is going to be placed on my body during that exercise session. So hey guys, I just wanted to make it obvious and clear that it doesn't matter necessarily what type of exercise that you're doing, but just that you're doing some sort of exercise, that insulin is going to be suppressed through that. So shameless plug to put in some of my own training video and my AMRAP here from last week at, what, 395 I believe it was. I'm still stressing all my energy systems of the body during this time. So I'm still suppressing blood glucose by squatting heavy, okay? I'm still suppressing blood glucose by deadlifting heavy. So they might not be that normal aerobic exercise system, but it's still coming out, it's still stressing the body. So I want you to be very clear and understand that it's not necessarily resistance training or aerobic training, but exercise in general. So I want you to keep in mind that it's going to help with performance as well. And there's some research that supports that, there's some research that doesn't support that. So it's going to kind of be on you, but we definitely know that if glycogen stores are low, we can see drops in muscular strength and endurance, okay? So I don't think that many people are going to disagree with that, thankfully. So what about after? Well, afterwards, I've just done a lot of damage to my muscles. I have depleted glycogen stores, and there is work to be done. So I want insulin to be a little bit higher during that time. Why? Because I want nutrients to go into that cell to help repair and rebuild. That's the entire point of that adaptation and getting stronger, getting bigger, and getting better, right? Is that we are improving from what we're doing. I don't want to just put in a bunch of work at the gym and have absolutely nothing to show for it. So I want to make sure I have carbs after as well. And the same goes with I want some carbs towards the end of my day and the beginning of my day also, depending when I'm working out, because I still want enough nutrients to be getting shuttled in to where I'm still getting new muscle and new adaptation from it. Okay? So let's talk about what happens during exercise with insulin and why, okay? So here's what happens during exercise with insulin. I said exercise, not extra fries, okay? What happens is insulin goes down. So even if you have a high carb meal and blood glucose would typically be rising, right? Which means insulin response would be coming up. What we see is that during exercise, insulin response goes down. And I'll explain to you why. There is something called GLUT4 that is on your muscle cells. And essentially what it does is it has like these, for lack of a better term, we'll have octopus arms. So it's going out and it's grabbing blood glucose and bringing it into the muscle cell to be used for energy. So because GLUT4 is essentially doing insulin's job to a point for it right now, insulin response does not have to be as high. So when everybody says, wow, why would you have all that sugar before your workout? You're going to spike your insulin, right? You're going to have blood glucose levels go way up. Well, not quite. That's actually a misunderstanding of how the body physiologically works. And we see this in diabetic patients as well, is that if they have not had enough sugar or carbohydrates before an exercise session, we can see low glycemia, blood glucose, right? So low blood sugar levels. They can get shaky, they can sort of get dizzy and like out of it and woozy, and they have to stop exercising and get some sort of juice or something, right? Well, that's because it's not the fact that insulin's doing something bad for them, right? Like if they took insulin and went and exercised, that might be part of it. But the real issue now is that they didn't have enough carbohydrate in their system beforehand, and they went and worked out, so GLUT4 is pulling the carbohydrates that are there, and there's just not enough available, okay? A lot of the time in diabetic persons, they are poorly adapted to exercise as well, just because of the, let's say, lack in exercise. And not everybody who's diabetic is sedentary or lacks exercise, let's be very honest about that. But so their aerobic systems they're not adapted. They don't have the extra enzymes from people who do aerobic activity. So it's a little bit harder for their system to keep up with the energy demands using other energy systems as well. So, but guys, I'm going to end with this one. And I'm going to end with it because every time I talk about insulin, I think it's important to mention, if you're going to take exogenous insulin, you better make sure that your shit is right. Because it can kill you, okay? There's a reason bodybuilders take insulin, and that's because it does. It helps. It shuttles nutrients into the muscle. It helps you recover and rebuild. I think that it is a very poor idea, okay? Insulin can kill you if it's done wrong. I don't believe that it's worth the risk, and I don't believe that it's something that you should be putting yourself out there on. If you're going to do it anyways, make sure you have somebody who knows what the fuck they're talking about and a professional that's helping to make sure that you're not going to end up dead with that. That would not be me. That will not be me. But there are other people, medical professionals, that can help you figure that out, I'm sure. So that's going to be my end point is I'm going to warn you about the legitimate dangers of taking exogenous insulin. Okay? What you do with that is up to you. And I will end that there, guys. So That's all I got today. Hopefully you learned a little bit. We got a little sciencey today. I hope that's all right with all of you. But I hope now you understand a little bit better how insulin responds during exercise. Okay? So hopefully I'll be talking to you guys again soon. But until then,